NC State family, it's time for an honest look at your sports world. Let's get you hooked up for Pack Therapy, presented by First Horizon Bank. Here are your hosts, Tim Donnelly and Wolfpack football legend Mike Glennon.
Welcome back. It is Pack Therapy, the podcast. Tim Donnelly here, as always, joined by Pack legend Mike Glennon, my co-host. We'll get the housekeeping out of the way quickly. Like, subscribe everywhere you listen to podcasts. Go to our YouTube page, 99.9 The Fan. Subscribe there. You can find a playlist for Pack Therapy where you get all of your Pack football. And as Pack basketball gets started, we'll be doing episodes about Pack basketball as well, giving you the therapy you need. And while you're there, while you're at the YouTube page, leave questions for Mike. Leave questions from what you want a former player's perspective, about a 10-year NFL veteran watching the offense this year, anything else. Stanford game coming up. Next week we'll answer a bunch of your questions. This week we'll answer a bunch of your questions, but we already have those chosen. But we look for those in the comments of the YouTube. That's where we mostly get the questions. All right, Mike, let's dive in. Realistically, how much can change on a bye week? I guess there are things that this team, we've talked about them, right? Need to be able to run the ball, need to be better on defense. Sometimes I think it's a little overhyped on like, oh, now I hope they fix the run game during the bye week. And it's like, well, they can grow new players. It's not that easy, but what can realistically change? Yeah,
I feel like last year you may have asked me the same question. And I was like, yeah, the bye week's more used for kind of self-scout, get a few extra reps in, get some guys some reps in practice that typically don't play, and go home, refresh a little, and come back, and it's not that big of a deal. But last year after the bye week, it felt like a lot of things changed and everything started clicking for this NC State team. So, maybe there is going to be a lot of improvement that we see, or kind of a different offense than they've shown the first 8 games of the season. In my experience, not a whole lot changes during the bye week, but it seems like Dave Doran and Robert and I, maybe they do kind of find a way to switch things up during that bye.
I talked about this on my afternoon show. The big adjustment, I always, every time we talk adjustments, I think of Eli Manning and Peyton Manning on the Manning cast. Absolutely hate the terms like, what did you adjust at halftime? Because they're like, no, we grabbed like a Gatorade and we ate a snack, and then coach said, hey, we're going to get to this play on the first drive, and then we ran out, and there weren't real adjustments. Last year, the NC State bye week adjustment, if you're going to pick one, was they started running Casey Concepcion. Before the bye, they had 7 games. He had 5 carries for, I have it here, 39 yards. After the bye, they had it ended up being 33 carries for 258 yards. That was, it seems, an immediate reaction to, we didn't know what we had with this freshman at the beginning of the year. We had a couple of days to put in some new pages of the playbook, or teach him the footwork on a running play, and that ended up kind of transforming the offense. From that point forward, it was Casey and Brennan Armstrong as the 2 runners, and obviously we know how that season turned around for State. You win the last 5, completely different vibe. I don't think you're going to find I don't think it's now Hollywood Smothers or any of these new guys are suddenly going to be the focal point. But is there a way, and this is, a very nerdy quarterback question, and luckily we have you here for it. Is there a way that the offense could make itself more for C.J. Bailey, their stud freshman, versus how it was probably designed for Grayson McCall, a little bit of a different quarterback coming into the year?
I think there definitely is. I think it's the conversations had during those weeks, and I'm sure Kurt Roper, the quarterback coach, is starting to get a sense in the meeting rooms what plays C.J. Bailey's mind kind of fits, and plays that maybe it just doesn't make as much sense. So I would imagine there's, between self-scouting the coaches looking at what plays have been effective so far this year with C.J. Bailey and asking him directly, what plays do you like? I would imagine there is a little bit of a shift, just because they spent all camp getting ready for Grayson McCall to be the quarterback, and now they have a time for a little bit of a breather, figure out what they want to be for these last 4 games of the season. So I do think, will it look that much different? Probably not, but I think it'll just be plays that CJ likes to run and has proven that he has success doing so.
Now, it all comes back to the running game offensively for me. You got to get it going somehow. It was the same thing at the bye week last year, as I mentioned. KC was kind of the answer. CJ Bailey has a little wiggle. Like he's a strider, big dude, can get out there and run. Sometimes he does it a little more than I'd want. But the other option with Grayson McCall retiring, this wasn't a benching where now you have the veteran as the backup. This is an injury that led to a retirement, is now you have Lex Thomas as the backup. Should this team be comfortable letting CJ Bailey maybe take on a little bit of the running game, running more read keep, read option, RPO stuff, knowing your quarterback might be running with Lex Thomas, who's another young guy, inexperienced, had the one drive late a few weeks ago. But like, what can you tell us about Lex as a guy who's now one play away?
Yeah, I think Lex, in his limited time against Clemson, looked good. So I think he could come in and be efficient. Now, do I think he'd beat Grayson McCall? Most likely not. I mean, Grayson was the starter and Lex was the number 3 to start the year. But I do think there's it's just a fine line with running with CJ. I don't mind zone reads because if he keeps it, that means the defensive end crashed and he can, get 5 yards, but you just get down. I think that's what you want to emphasize to him is it's like, last week I saw Tua take off and the crowd reacted like he just threw a touchdown pass.
Because he slid.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what you want to teach CJ is at a young age, don't let the hits add up and, all it takes is one big hit. I almost think there's kind of like everyone's like, oh, the bigger quarterback, he can sustain the hits like a Cam Newton. I just think it's eventually the body breaks down. And CJ, I think he can take hits, but those hits add up over time and you don't want that. So I don't mind them sprinkling him in. I don't want him to become the featured, running back by any means. But he's shown that he can make plays with his feet and he's effective. I just think he's even more effective in the passing game. I
say this all the time, and it's even true for, I believe for like the Jaden Daniels and the Lamar Jacksons, who are obviously another level of runner. I want you to run the absolute minimum amount that makes the defense worry about it every play. Right, so it's not just, oh, you're fast. It's you're fast and you will take advantage of it, but I don't want you to run one more time than that. I want defensive coordinators to have a contingency plan, a spy, emphasize, contain, whatever it is, every single play. But I don't want you running any more than whatever that minimum is, and that's part of Robert and Nye's kind of challenge is finding where that minimum is for a player like CJ Bailey. Let's talk defense for a second here. Since I've been covering NC State, the past probably 3 weeks have been the most heavily scrutinized for Tony Gibson's defense. Also the most talked about, right? Normally it's kind of the set it and forget it. You're just like, all right, the defense is going to be the defense. They're going to be good. They're going to be this. They're going to attack. They're going to be aggressive, and let's worry about the offense. Is that fish out of water kind of new experience for the defense? Is that anything you worry about, or is it still Tony Gibson's over there and we're going to roll?
I definitely don't think this defense has been what previous Tony Gibson defenses have been. Mm-hmm. I will give them credit that they've been pretty darn good in the red zone, and they're giving up a bunch of yards and teams are moving down the field on them, but they're holding teams to field goals. And you talk about in the Syracuse game, what did McCord have? Like
347 or something.
But they only
yards?
gave up 24 points, and a few of those ended in field goals. And a few times, actually, they went for it. Syracuse did. Against Cal, same thing. They gave up the long touchdown at the beginning of the game. And then from there on out, they, for the most part, just gave up field goals. So it has turned into, it's like a very aggressive bend don't break defense is the best way I could describe it.
Which is kind of an oxymoron. Because
right.
Usually if you're giving up big yards and like with all the cover zero and the blitzes, it's not like you're giving up 12 yards of play. You're giving up big plays. So it's a very oxymoronish defense right now.
Yeah, for the most part, they haven't given up the big play. Cal did, like we just said, in the first minute and a half, gave up that long touchdown run. Other than that, I can't remember a whole lot of big plays given up, but it just feels like the offense moves the ball at ease. Mm-hmm. But once they get to the red zone, they hold them to a field goal. So you can live with that as a defensive coordinator, and on the flip side for the offense, if your defense is only giving up field goals, then we just have to score touchdowns and we can win the game. So no, it's not been what we're used to seeing. We talked about it a million times. I think some of that does go on Payne Wilson not being there anymore when he was there for the previous what I felt like 5 seasons probably.
Off and on.
Yeah,
he was in and out.
But dated back to the Kansas State game last year in the bowl. I think that's when we first saw the impact that Peyton Wilson had, and I think that's kind of carried over this year. But I still think Tony Gibson's a good defensive coordinator, and it's just he doesn't quite have the players this year that he's had in previous years.
I know it feels like we're doing a lot of a lot of like, well, let's give an excuse here, but I'm going to give you one more because some of the comments I've seen right now, State is giving up the second most points in the ACC. So that wouldn't argue or wouldn't back us up when we say it's a little bit bend, don't break.
I will say since the Clemson game.
I was just going to say, you give up a 59 and a 51, your averages are going to be skewed a bit. And I don't necessarily believe in like, hey, throw out those 2 games. Like they're part of your resume. They're part of what you put up. But in full context, they're going to skew your averages, and they're going to, Tennessee and Clemson, those games are ones you want to forget.
Players.
Yes,
they had more talent
and more experience, and things got going in a momentum way, and you just kind of got away from you. You take those away, it's a very different defense statistically for State, which is I think what people are asking for. And by the way, just to throw my 2 cents into a online debate that I think NC State fans will back me up on. Momentum is real. It just is. I know there's like stats that say that it isn't. Yes, it is. If you've ever played football, you felt it where you're like, uh-oh, everything in the room just changed. And that was happening for Clemson and Tennessee. Regardless of the talent difference, the momentum got them going as well. Let's take a quick break here. We have to start talking Stanford. We have to start answering your questions here on Pack Therapy. So your questions from our YouTube page, from social media for Mike, coming up next. Stick around. Back on Pack Therapy, Tim Donnelly here with Mike Glennon. It is the portion of the show where we bring your questions. We try to keep them Pack related, try to keep them State football related, but on a bye week, we might stray a little bit. This doesn't come from the internet, but I feel like it's a necessity since we're recording this on Halloween. Favorite and least favorite candy, Mike?
Favorite would be Reese's.
Go ahead and get on that mic. We've been doing this long
Favorite would be Reese's. I love Reese's.
We're talking pieces. Favorite? We're talking peanut butter cup. We're talking the little ones in the foil, or the ones in the big orange.
No, peanut butter cup are great. Also, I like when Easter season comes around and they come in the bunnies. Both of those work. Least favorite. I'm not a candy corn guy. Never have been.
Surprisingly, you're going to get some feedback on that.
People like it.
I think most people are like timidly on your side. There's a few people that very much defend candy corn. They think it has a bad rap. All right, so there you go. That's just getting us started here. Let's go to your questions. At Jones Johns 8881. This was YouTube. What is the best part of a bye week for the players? Do you actually get to refresh, or is that just a wives' tale? I don't know why that would be a wives' tale, but there you go.
The best part is in college, you probably go home, and it's really the only time all year or during the season, I should say, that you get to go home and see your family, see your high school friends. So it's somewhat of a refresher. I would say it's not as much as people probably think. We're talking, my guess is they had off Thursday through Sunday, maybe, and maybe even Sunday they had a practice. So it's not like you're going on vacation like guys in the NFL may. In college, you get to go home for 2 days and it's right back to work. So it still is nice. Kind of, practices are a little lighter, and it's not as intense. It is nice on the mind and the body. Just only 4 games left, but it's nice to have a little bit of time away from the game and get back to it.
And just because some might be thinking it, take a 21, 22-year-old. Who sees his high school friends like twice a year, and you get to go home for 48 hours, you're probably not like sitting in an ice bath with your feet up. Like it's. And by the way, I think it's kind of important as well to like get out and be a kid and have some fun because, I'll speak especially for the quarterbacks. Like it's full-time job. You're acting like you're a professional, and occasionally you need to blow off some steam, get your yayas out.
No doubt. I'm sure the guys that are legal age probably had a few drinks, and that's okay.
Yeah,
they need to escape football every now and then and enjoy themselves, and then it's back to work when you get to Raleigh.
You don't be like Derek from Step Brothers. I've been on carbs since 2004. No, sometimes you need to blow off some steam as much as you need to refresh. Mr. _get it done _88 on YouTube asks, I thought this was interesting because I think it's a good bye-week debate. How much does Doran and the program embrace the former Pac players on game day? I'm tired of seeing Michael Irvin and Ed Reed on the sideline every Miami game being treated like gods, and we only occasionally see Torrey Holt, never see Phillip Rivers. Where's Mario Williams on a college football Saturday?
They do a good job. Every week we get an email saying if you want pregame field passes that you got to send your name in and you'll be out on the field. I know Phillip Rivers is coaching high school football and has enough kids to worry about that. I don't think his wife. He's going to be like,
Can you imagine if he wrote in? Yeah, let me get field passes for me and the kids. They're like, all right, we got to cancel all these other field passes. Got to block off the 10-yard line to the 45-yard line for the Rivers.
Yeah, hey babe, I'm going to head up to Raleigh for the game real quick while you take care of our other 8 kids. I don't know how that's working. Mario Williams, I don't know. I haven't seen Mario in quite some time, but I see Torrey around a good bit, which is good, and obviously some of the other guys are still playing in the league. But I think Raleigh, so many guys moved back to this area, which is unique for most college campuses, that they're usually in, think of Blacksburg. No one's moving to Blacksburg when they're done with their NFL career. So that's one of the beauties of Raleigh is that tons of guys move back to this area. And I would imagine, Michael Irvin and Ed Reed show up when they're playing, Florida State when they're a top 10 team. Michael Irvin's not showing up when Miami isn't in that primetime matchup.
And I will say this about Miami, having covered the ACC for a long time, they're on the far extreme of that side. They work very, like, one might argue because they have a giant stadium and it doesn't always look the fullest. Like going to a timeout, they would much rather show Warren Sapp on the sideline than show like their student section.
Right.
So if you made me choose, and this is from a fan's perspective, who's showing up, like 5,000-10,000 fans or 5-10 former legends, I'm taking the student section and the fans.
Oh, so. No doubt. They're definitely showing that. And Michael Irvin's probably going to Miami to watch the football game, but he's probably taking part in some activities after the game on South Beach that it's not just to go to the football game. Yeah. He's got other things in mind when he's going to Miami on a Saturday night.
I think there's a lot you can complain about, State fans, and you know what they all are. I think the game day atmosphere is actually pretty good. I don't think that's one that you're really, really upset about.
No, NC State has one of the best game day atmospheres out there.
That's what I'm getting at. David Jones on YouTube. This is a common questioner. Are they trying to beef up CJ in the weight room? Mike, you were always a thin, lanky one. That's his words, not mine. I'm taking that directly from Dave.
You've said it too, but
yeah.
I don't.
I wouldn't say always though. I think early in your career you were very skinny, and
I was. I don't know if I was honestly ever as skinny as CJ. I think he's about $195. I think I came into school at 2, or maybe my true freshman. Maybe I wasn't. No, because I remember I was 191 in high school my senior year, and then I think at college I came in as a true freshman at 205 or 210.
I'll actually just real quickly here. From the end of your high school senior season, if you know you're playing college football, you that's probably when I tried to gain weight the most, lifted just by myself because I was so terrified that I was going to look like a child when I got to college and I'd be playing with 22, 23-year-olds.
Yeah, I actually didn't play basketball my senior year of high school because I thought I was, and I did actually have a legit shot at being the starting quarterback as a true freshman. That basketball, it is impossible to gain weight with all the running you do. And I was like, I need to be able to put on weight. So I didn't play basketball my senior year just for that reason. For CJ, look, he's in season. He's not going to put on any weight right now. After the season, I'm sure it's going to be a point of emphasis. But coming from a guy that struggled to put weight on, it's not as easy as people think. Like
it is now. It wasn't then.
Wake up in the middle of the night. I'd have an alarm set at 3 a.m. to eat an Uncrustable and have a protein shake, a pre-made protein shake. And I did this almost every night for like 2 years. Like
I did the exact same
dedication of it. Like I don't think people realize you're setting an alarm like a zombie to eat an Uncrustable and have a peanut butter sandwich. Like it
just CJ, pound it. Your mouth is
it's
so bad in the middle, and your roommate hates you because you have a weird alarm going off at 2:30 in the morning. It's a tough deal.
So yeah, I would imagine next year we see CJ put on 10 to 15 pounds, but the way his body's built, he's never going to be that big.
And I'll actually, are they trying to beef up CJ in the weight room? You're definitely not lifting super heavy as a quarterback. Nothing on your shoulders. If you really wanted to like squat or something early in the week, sure. but quarterbacks shouldn't do a ton in the weight room. But also what they're working on now isn't beefing them up. It's mitigating the losses. I guarantee you they're getting on the scale before and after every practice. They're replenishing the fluids. You're going to be lighter at the end of a football season than you were at the beginning. For a guy that already started pretty light, you have to just make sure you're not losing 10 pounds. You're keeping it to like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I whatever his weight says he is, which I think is like 194. I don't know. I bet he is under 190 at this point in the season. I do want to see him put on weight. At the end of the day, I'm not overly concerned. Look at Jared Goff. I mean, look at Kirk Cousins. There's plenty. Look at Jaden Daniels. I mean, he did just get his ribs hit, but Jaden Daniels looks frail. Like, I don't even think I look. You could tell me different. When I look at Jaden Daniels, he looks skinnier to me than I looked out on that field. So there are plenty of guys that play in the NFL that are basically as skinny as CJ is.
This is maybe the most open-ended question, but there were multiple versions of it. So take this in whatever direction you want. I picked this one from MK Sneedy 9923. What are your thoughts on the offensive play calls? That's kind of like, hey, what do you think of like the current state of politics or something? It's like, oh, well, there's a little nuance here that we're going to have to talk about. We're not going to actually talk about politics, but just saying there's a lot there.
Yeah, I think Robert and I has shown that he has ability to get players the ball. At times, it does feel like the offense is a little bit of a it's just like creative plays rather than a building block that they kind of grow off of. Like I can't say I look at the play calls and it's like, this is exactly what they're trying to do. It's a little bit of a trickery offense where they do have their base plays, but they lean also on some form of trickeration.
Would you call it? And this is a term that's used about play calling quite a bit, and I've used it on my afternoon show quite often. Getting too cute.
There is some of that, but it is effective. The thing is, when he calls it, it does typically work. I just don't love building an offense based on kind of gimmicks. It's like I want a good, solid core of nucleus of plays, and then we can grow off of that and sprinkle in these gimmicky plays rather than it feels like at times they rely on them. Last week that wasn't the case against Cal. I felt like they ran solid plays. They didn't really need some of those gimmick plays, but in the past, sometimes it feels like they rely on the trick plays to get things going.
Which this is my own question, but it's a follow-up. I'll explain one of my theories. It's the 7-iron theory. You've seen Tin Cup?
Yeah.
Right? He hits the 7-iron like Daly hits the 3. And it's a golf movie. But I use the 7-iron because it's the club that Tin Cup, Roy McAvoy, hits so well. An average golfer, below average golfer. You're out there on the course. You can't find a shot to save your life, right? It's you're topping it, you're slicing it, you're hooking it. You can't find a rhyme or reason. Everybody has that club that they're like, I hit this one better than most, right? This is the one. I don't care if I'm 275 out in the fairway. If I need one up in the air, like I'm grabbing my 8-iron. And if I need to hit 3 of them to get there, I'm going to hit 3 of them just because I need something in the air and straight. It's what I do. My offensive coordinator in college used to say it's what we major in. It's like what we do when we need it. What did they do? What's their 7-iron right now? What's the offense for NC State 7-iron?
And that's why I think I don't have an exact answer for. Like, what do they major in? I've heard many coaches say that thing, we're going to major in this. And that's what, to me, it probably is lacking, is that it seems like they try a bunch of things and see what sticks, a little bit of throwing darts at dartboard. But, I mean, to give them credit, the offense has looked better the last couple of weeks in CJ. But we'll see kind of what they do coming out the rest of the year.
Can you be too flexible, I guess, is that, right? Because Robert and I's reputation is he looks at the guys on his roster and he pretty much reinvents the offense around their talents, right? The best way I've been able to describe it is during his time at UVA as the offensive coordinator, he led a Orange Bowl offense at UVA with Bryce Perkins as their quarterback, who ran for, I think, 1,200 yards. And then a year or two later, had the most prolific offense in UVA history with Brennan Armstrong throwing 41, 42 touchdowns, and he ran for like 100 yards. And Bryce Perkins was a quarterback, so that's the same position, just being very different. And that is, one, impressive, right? Because a lot of coaches are like, I have a system and, give it time, just like Novocaine always works. He doesn't do that, but can you be too much the other way where it's like, I can do everything, so I major in nothing?
Yeah, I definitely think that could be a case. I think you want to give him credit that he's kind of a chameleon and adapts to what they do. But when I was in school, like, we had our offense and that was it. And every week we pretty much ran the same plays and we'd throw in a few wrinkles a week, and that was it. And it was pretty much just like formationally. Like, we ran the same plays, which I think is a little too extreme the other way. So I think there is a fine balance, and we're going to do what we do. We're going to major in what we major in, but let's find a few plays a week that kind of expose the defense, or, kind of highlight some of our players that we're trying to get the ball to in a more creative way than just, day one install plays. So I think there's the fine line on both ends, but I definitely don't think you want to be on the too flexible side. I think you would rather err on this is what we do and we're going to live and die on it.
Last one here comes from DDogTX on YouTube. Glennon commentary and knowledge is top notch. Might he be in line for a broadcast booth?
Well, I gave that a try, and all the ACC networks stopped calling. So they must not have liked what they heard. It was a short run. That
was before you got these reps on Pack Therapy, though. Now you're in the mix.
I will say I am enjoying, after basically giving up every fall weekend for 15 years between college and the NFL, I am enjoying just being at home with my family, going to the games. So it was fun doing it. I'm not sure if it's in the cards. I might just stick with Pack Therapy.
There it is. He's not leaving Pack Therapy either way. He can go do whatever he wants on weekends. Midweek, he's here answering your questions, which is why I'll remind you one more time. Head to our YouTube page, 99.9 The Fan. Find the Pack Therapy playlist. You can listen to all of our archives, or you can just go to the most recent video, most recent clip, and leave a comment, leave a question. If you have anything for Mike, I would encourage you during the Stanford game this weekend to watch. During the game, if you have a question and you don't want to forget it, head to our YouTube, comment right under the most recent video, or if you want to come back Monday, Tuesday next week, do the same thing. We'll peruse them right before the show next week, and you might just hear your question answered by a Pack legend. Mike, appreciate it as always. For everybody else, we'll see you next week.